He had everything: the car, the apartment in Lagos Island, the suits that cost more than his father earned in 3 months, the phone contacts that would have made the boys from his village weep with envy. He had everything. And every night he lay in that expensive apartment staring at the ceiling of a room that cost 400,000 naira a month. And he could not sleep, not because of noise, not because of hunger, because of a silence that had followed him all the way from the village of Abeokuta to the 32nd floor of a building with a name that meant nothing to anyone who had raised him. This is the story of Seon and what he paid for the life he thought he wanted. He grew up in a two-room house in a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Abeokuta. His father, Emmanuel, was a carpenter who woke before sunrise and worked until he could not see the nails anymore. His mother, Blessing, sewed fabric at the market 6 days a week, standing on her feet from 7 in the morning until the light was gone. They were not poor in the way that breaks people completely. They were poor in the way that requires constant management, the way that means every problem is a financial calculation before it is anything else. The roof needs fixing, but the school fees are due, the hospital visit or the rent, the new sandals or the food for the week. Seon understood this mathematics by the time he was 10 years old. He learned it not from a lecture, but from watching his father's hands at the dinner table, always with a cut somewhere, always slightly rough, always folded the same way after eating as if saying a private thank you for the meal. From watching his mother iron her one good blouse every Sunday morning for church because appearances at church were the one dignity they could afford. He watched and he decided. He decided he would not live like this, not forever, not if he could help it. He was intelligent, the kind of intelligence that teachers notice, that neighbors mention, that becomes part of a family's identity. Emmanuel's son, the brilliant one, he finished secondary school with results that made the principal call his father personally. He got into the University of Lagos on a partial scholarship. He studied economics. He studied it with the specific hunger of someone for whom this is not an academic exercise, but survival research. His first year in Lagos was the year he understood what poverty looks like when it travels with you. He had enough for fees and not much else. He shared a hostel room with 5 other boys. He ate once a day on many days and called it intermittent fasting because the phrase made it sound like a choice. He walked where he could not afford to ride. He wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. He told no one from back home about any of this. He told his mother he was fine. Every Sunday when she called and asked how he was eating, he said, "Mommy, I'm fine. The food here is good." His mother said, "God is providing." He said, "Yes, Mommy." He put the phone down and drank water for dinner. The opportunity came in his third year. A man named Victor had a business importing electronics from China and selling them through a network of distributors across Lagos. Victor needed a young man who could handle documentation, speak with clients, move fast, and ask very few questions. Seun could do the first three. He worked on the last one. The money was good, better than good. By the time he graduated, he had more in his account than his father had earned in the previous 5 years combined. He did not examine the business too carefully. He told himself it was import and distribution. He told himself the part he was responsible for was clean. He told himself many things. They were sufficient for a while. He did not go back to Abeokuta immediately. He went back 6 months after graduation, and the visit was designed to be noticed. The car he arrived in was a conversation at every compound on the street. He brought a generator. He brought a new mattress for his parents. He brought a Nokia phone for his father. A good one, not the cheapest. And he paid for a 6 month data plan. He sat in the sitting room of the two-room house with his parents and younger siblings, and he watched his father's face. Emmanuel did not say much. He held the phone. He looked at his son. He said, "Soon, how is this money coming?" Soon was ready for this question. He explained. He used words like logistics and trading and consultancy. His father listened. When he finished, Emmanuel was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My son, I have been watching you since you were small. I know your face. And your face right now is the face of someone who is telling part of the truth." Sin looked at the carpet. His father did not push. He simply said, "Money that cannot stand in the light has a way of taking the light with it when it goes." Then he stood up and went to the bedroom. Sion sat in the sitting room with his mother. She held his hand. She did not say anything about what his father had said. She asked if he was eating properly. He said yes. She said, "You look tired, Seun." He said, "I'm fine, mommy. I'm just busy." She looked at him the way his mother had always looked at him, the specific look of a woman who knows her son better than he knows himself and has decided to wait rather than push. He drove back to Lagos the next morning. The years that followed were the years of everything: the apartment on Lagos Island, the car upgrade, the circles, the men in Victor's network who became his network, the clubs and the dinners and the networking events where business cards were exchanged and drinks were ordered without checking the price. He sent money home every month without fail. He called less. His mother called. He answered when he could. When he couldn't, he sent a message. All good, talk soon. His younger brother Kunle was in secondary school. His sister Temitope was preparing for university. He paid for both of them without being asked. He told himself this was what mattered, that provision was love, that money sent was presence felt. He told himself many things in those years. They were sufficient for a while. The problem with businesses built on a foundation that cannot stand fully in the light is that the light eventually finds them anyway. Victor's operation was investigated, then raided. The documentation that had been Seun's responsibility for 3 years was precisely what the investigators were interested in. Seun was not arrested. He was questioned twice and released, but his name was attached to the investigation in ways that specific business circles knew about, even before it became public. The phone calls reduced. The dinner invitations stopped. The men who had called him by his first name with the specific warmth of people who need you available started finding reasons not to answer. He was 31 years old, sitting in an apartment he had just found out he could only afford for 3 more months, looking at a phone that had stopped ringing, understanding something that his father had known from looking at his face on the day he arrived with the generator and the Nokia phone. He called his father on a Thursday night. Emmanuel answered on the second ring. Son said, "Daddy?" His father said, "I'm here." Son said, "I think I made some mistakes." His father said nothing, not the nothing of someone who is not there, the nothing of someone who is completely present and is giving the space its silence requires. Seun said, "The business was not as clean as I made it sound." Emmanuel said, "I know." "You knew?" "I told you, I know your face." Seun pressed his hand against his eyes. "I don't know what to do," he said. His father was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "When you were a small boy and you made a mistake and you came to me, I didn't ask you to fix it first before you came. I asked you to come to me and we would figure out the fixing together. You are still my son. Come home." He moved back to Abeokuta with 2 suitcases, the same size as what he had left with. He slept in the room he had grown up in. He heard his father wake before sunrise. He heard his mother's feet in the kitchen at 5:30. He heard his sister singing something in the bathroom while she prepared for school. He heard sounds he had forgotten he knew. He lay in the room he had grown up in and he slept, not the ceiling staring sleeplessness of the 32nd floor. Sleep, actual sleep, the kind that arrives when the body is somewhere it recognizes. He woke up surprised by it. He worked with his father for 8 months, not carpentry, though he learned to do some of it. He helped with the business side, accounts, client communication, bidding for contracts, things Emmanuel had been managing alone with a phone and a paper ledger. The business grew modestly, not the growth that makes men famous, the growth that makes things stable. Seun discovered in those 8 months that stability had a specific feeling that he had never associated with money. It felt like sleeping. It felt like hearing his mother's feet in the kitchen. It felt like his father talking to clients with his honest carpenter's hands moving as he described the work he would do. It felt like sitting at the dinner table where the food was simple and the conversation was real and no one was performing anything for anyone. He did not stay in Abeokuta forever. He went back to Lagos eventually. Different work, smaller money than before, slower growth than before. He started a small logistics consultancy, registered properly, built slowly. His father visited him once, 2 years after the carpentry months, and sat in Sun's new office, modest, honest, a plant on the desk, and looked around with the specific eyes of a man who recognizes what he is looking at. He said, "This is good, Sun," not "This is big," not "You have made it." This is good. Soon understood the difference. He told this story once to a younger man who had come to him asking for advice about a business opportunity that sounded familiar. The opportunity had the specific quality of things that cannot stand fully in the light. The young man had said, "But the money is real." Sin said, "The money is always real. That is not the question." Then what is the question? Sin thought about the 32nd floor, about the ceiling he could not stop looking at, about the phone that stopped ringing, about moving home with two suitcases, about waking up surprised by sleep. He said, "The question is what the money costs, not in naira, in sleep, in the face your father reads and knows is not telling the full truth, in the phone calls you stop making because you are too busy to answer the people who actually know you." He paused. "The question is what you have left when the money goes, because the money always has a way of going, and what is left is what you actually built." The young man sat with this. Subscribe to this channel, like and share more emotional videos dropping every day.